All right. So, welcome to another DPI Presents. So, today, this is kind of unusual because usually Rosalind is the one asking the questions. But today we have Rosalind Rice, co founder of DPI. And today's topic is all about speaking up, how to respond to everyday biases and stereotypes. And the reason why we wanted to kind of have this conversation is because it stemmed off of an article that I read, and it's been all over the news about an inappropriate sign that was posted in an insurance agent's office in reference to Juneteenth and the reason why they were closed. And so it created mass just kind of repulsion against this business. They lost business. They had to take their phone off of the hook because this sign that was posted was so offensive. They were just inundated with horrible phone calls, Yelp reviews, Google reviews, one-star reviews. They lost some of their business as a result of it. And so it just impacted in ways that they did not realize. And I remember when I was watching the interview, when the lady was responding to what happened, she said, "I had no idea. That wasn't my intention." So I thought, why don't we have this kind of conversation? So Rosalind, before we kind of dig in, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. So good to be here. Yes, I am normally the one asking the questions, but I am a diversity practitioner and co-founder of DPI. And I agree with you, Renee. In many people's heart, they want to do something good. And being able to speak up on behalf of someone else is critical in 2022 as a business owner. And I know you asked me to talk about myself, but I'm ready to just kind of dive right in. But as a business owner, I think here this woman did not have malicious intent in her heart, but there was impact within her community. And a business that had been there for 32 years is now suffering the financial repercussions of just one simple statement that she put on her door when they were closed for Juneteenth. So I think that this is a timely conversation that we should have within our DPI community.
I agree. I agree. So, in talking about how to respond to everyday biases and stereotypes, this is a first question that I have for you. So, what do I do as a leader when someone makes a bias statement? How do I handle that?
That is a good question because we will hear all type of comments. And if we have people, especially if they are in the field, maybe they're going on sales calls or maintenance calls, they could say a statement inside of someone's home or someone's place of business that can really be a raw representation of who we are to the core of our organization. And if it has a negative connotation with it, if it's offensive to one of our clients, we want to make sure that we clean that up. So if there is something that we hear that has come back to us as a leader, we first need to kind of take a step back and really understand, take a breath. When we first hear statements, normally we can just be completely responsive and reactive, but we want to take a breath and really think about the context of what was happening when the statement was made. And think to yourself, do I remain silent or do I engage this further? Was the person telling a joke? Was there something that was being retaliated? So they said this statement in retaliation to something else that was said. So really step back and take a holistic view, take a breath, and really understand what it is, the full context of the situation in which they made the statement. But it will be important to speak up.
So, should I remain silent? Because I know you talked about that. And what's the impact of me just not saying anything?
Silence carries as much impact as actually speaking up. So, as a business owner, you are not only a leader within your organization, you're a leader within your community. Whether you know that or not, whether you wanted that mantle on yourself, you are a leader within your community. So, it is incredibly important that you speak up. Your silence will carry influence. And I just want to read a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. The way in which you speak up is what we're going to be talking about today, but it is important for a leader to be able to speak up when there is a biased, stereotypical statement, a prejudiced statement that comes forward.
I think that's so good. Like you said, your silence carries influence. You know, we know that words are important, words matter, but also silence. And so it is important for us to speak up. So what are some ways to kind of disarm, because you talked about, you know, being able to disarm a bias statement. So we hear that statement. How do we disarm the impact of that statement?
That's good. I think it's important. Step number one is to interrupt it. Interrupt it all the time. As a leader, you are a role model. And so you want to be consistent in interrupting the statement. And it can be as simple as saying, you know, ouch. If you say ouch, someone knows that they have said something that might not have rolled off their tongue the right way or could possibly be offensive to someone. I also think it's important for a leader to be prepared. Already have a set of questions on our blog on dpi2.com. We have questions that you can use to interrupt everyday biases. And one of those questions can simply be, or statements can simply be, I didn't find that funny. Or a question, what exactly did you mean by that? So every time you hear something that could be offensive, you want to be able to interrupt it. So then you put the burden on the person that is actually making the statement to go a little bit deeper into the meaning of what they are saying. Because there could be a greater context where it's not a malicious statement that you're thinking that it might be.
So I'm so happy that you blogged about this and that you referenced dpi2.com. You know, once this recording is over, they will have an opportunity to just kind of read the blog that you posted with some additional information about what we're talking about today. So this is what I want to know. How do I start to even understand my blind spots as an owner, right? Because one of the things that we talk about and with DPI is we all have blind spots, not just the person that is speaking out of, you know, something that may offend, but we all have blind spots. Yeah. So how do I start to understand what my blind spots are?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that is where DPI really comes into play because we offer trainings that allow business owners, leaders, workforces, team members to be able to understand that sometimes we can cast our eyes on other people that we think are making these, you know, racist, ageism, classism type of statements. But it's important for us to understand that every single one of our brains are biased. You know, I'm biased in the fact that I think my son are the most handsome sons in the entire world. So bias can be good. It could be negative. Obviously, many times we hear about it in a negative statement. I think, Renee, you and I share the bias that the, you know, University of Florida is the best school to attend. So there are bias, our minds are biased. And so I think one of the ways to look at your own blind spots is just kind of slow down. When you are making a statement and you're running so fast, our brain makes these shortcuts because we're trying to process all this information. Just slow down and really within yourself realize and affirm within yourself that you will not allow hate to have the last word, that you are going to foster a culture that is inclusive of everyone. And so I think that is one of the ways when we can just slow down, breathe, take a step back, we can really start to understand some of our own blind spots and challenge all of our assumptions that we make on a daily basis, all of us.
Well, and I know that's one thing that we talk about a lot with, you know, in our teaching on Belonging Matters, is that you've got to challenge your assumptions, right? Because we've talked about how biases are preferences. It's just that preference that you may have leading to, you know, a bias. And so with that being the case, we do have to challenge our assumptions. We do have to challenge, okay, why am I making this decision? Is there bias? Is there preference that's coming in, leaking in to this decision, and really slowing down to ask that additional question so that we can really make the best decision for the organization. All right, so we're kind of closing up, but I do have one final question because I want you to kind of review for our viewers again. What are some ways, and I know that you talk about in your blog, and I'm drawing reference from the blog because I read it and enjoyed it immensely. What are 4 ways that we can disarm those biases and the decision making associated with those biases that we have?
That's a great question, Renee. When you were talking about challenging assumptions, I wish, that business owner that put that Juneteenth sign on that door would have just slowed down and really challenged the assumption that people would have laughed at that statement or found like humor with that statement. If she would have just taken a moment, it would have definitely had a much different outcome. But obviously at this point, she has to move forward. So there are 4 easy ways to really start to, and this is not a comprehensive list, but it is a start. Slow down. I talk about that a lot. We talk about that in our training room. We are talking about reimagine diversity and also belonging matters. Interrupt the bias, like find a statement that you feel comfortable with. I don't find that funny. What exactly do you mean by that? So interrupt everyday bias every single time. It's important as a leader that you speak up because you don't want hate to have the last word. The third one is question. Just ask a question. So if someone says, you don't look gay, you don't look Muslim, ask, what do you mean by that? I know that I just said that, but it's important. Even if someone's making a multi-generational statement, oh, these teenagers are so lazy. You don't want to take one experience with one person and aggregate that over an entire population of people. So if you feel that about one teenager, don't say all teenagers are lazy. So it's important, again, that we disarm within ourselves our own blind spots. And the fourth one is to educate ourselves. The burden of being able to educate is not on the person who we have offended or who we don't have that experience with. I remember actually my mom and I, we were watching Soul of a Nation in May during AAPI month, and we learned such rich information about this population of people that, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Hawaiian. We learned such incredible information, and we took it upon ourselves to sit down and learn more about them, their struggles, what they have, gone through. And there's 50 different ethnicities that make up the AAPI population. So take time to educate yourself about someone else's learned experience. So breathe. Interrupt the biases, question, and then the last one is educate yourself.
Oh, I am so thankful we had this conversation. And so to learn more about DPI, the offerings that we have, please visit us at dpi2.com. Do not forget to subscribe. We have fresh videos that come out that are just there to educate. So please subscribe and share this with your friends, family, and coworkers. Rosalind, thank you so much. I appreciate you allowing me to ask you questions and to inform our viewers. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.